Oh, Tulsi Gabbard is a good woman. In other words, it's demonstrable, but both parties are making mistakes. This came from before the Obama administration with America's roles with all these different countries, including Russians, inter and intra campuses, having people act tied to predicate acts with facts and databases. They have roles with fire campuses and medical campuses too, with all sides of criminal and civil cases, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the differences of the guilt of the positions there, the families there as families, roles with identity thefts, fraud, slanders, mass fake transcripts, mass cover-ups at campuses offensively, exploiting phenomenon there, where countries A through Z, suits and ties, counters and exceptions, they were already are maintained by a breaching method, blaming other things, others or selves for what it caused, like syntactical. In other words, with the Boolean logic, with A therefore B, logic of the voices being heard, they're reliant upon nature's debate as styles, reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions or fact achieving nature quality aspect / in nature, like criminal insidiousness natures of syntax, of names treatment, sequence value treatments, in other words, exceptions treatments. And this already was where a breaching method uses and used names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, their lawyers, their family members, their sources, names at crime scenes, next to them, next to the relative body dumping spots. All-time collusion at the same time with the same sequence shifts with the interbranch family members and the intelligence tied to them. This breaching method originally instilled made a whole bunch of jobs and titles and measured and maintained their difference, self-valued syntactically, through an as system stacked ulterior from the one that is showing us its body of difference / hyperdifference. For example, it is showing us that it is not just generating the human species body made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies, but it's generating a whole bunch of different species bodies. And each one is made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. So we can discern it's not us nor them generating all group differences. Or, we could generate group differences, all agree at countries A through Z. But as systems tactile ulterior from appreciation of its hyperdifference, that distinct identity of value progression. That is all things, all not. But anyway, value here only increasing. Or it is forced from here, not as death, but as forced space nature transfer, as for / a special difference transfer, with relativity to its identity relationship to itself. Its complete identity relationship to itself comes with the value of being able to discern to an extent an identity of value progression that is hyper invisible, but so still discernible, so to speak. Where and how the parts of speech, therefore every subject, they're about the invisible, but still discernible, / the hyper invisible, but still discernible. And I've expressed this, I've demonstrated this in my videos. Plus, we have black people's right to bodies. Therefore, there is relativity / hyper relativity. There is that distinct identity of simultaneous nature that shows us we are distinct from the other species' bodies, but while simultaneously being non-distinct and being simultaneous, but again, per a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature. Therefore, referred to me by myself as nature showing us to refer to it this way. In other words, as something, and, as a distinct identity of simultaneous nature. Also, there are truths of things when people try to debate them. See, but they don't allow in nature or a quality to debate at all form of locations the way the breaching method knew they would. It showed them there are means for regular people to discern. We have black people's way to buy. We can discern, the natures of debate used to sense for the breaching method. At countries A through Z, everyone's sensing for a hyper-foreign. In other words, everyone did not have free speech, including our founders. That's one of the reasons that only founders that were allowed to know the name of specifically is James Madison. And we're directed to understand that was his plan, was what caused the Declaration of Independence, what caused the Civil War, the Constitutional Convention, the Civil War. Until today, how the differences of the parties, state collusions, and not discerning, how having been used remotely, self-guided roles, needs, natures, and styles, incapable of defending their logic and the nature of logic and roles with precedents and statutes originally instilled, as appreciated, as actually recorded. Connecticut campuses forced Saudis to collusions with them and with Wethersfield police intercities involved with other agencies and all kinds of differences brackets, all kinds of fake transcripts roles. A bunch of people involved with and as a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members and their neighbors. They have collusion /S with predicate acts with facts methods and a singular method, /S. And this is discernible directly regarding the principal treatments. They can't defend themselves and afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions and with syntax proper regarding, with nature proper. Nature treatments proper regarding the importance of understanding how James Madison's plan was to counter-extort everyone. And by means of making them break the same laws that no one wanted, and then pretend it was only about that, and have no way to defend themselves unless they had the phenomenon that our founders, plural, behind James Madison and his plan that they revealed for everyone. But they had to leave slavery, for example, entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. They had to leave even Native Americans fighting with Native Americans. And the difference used by the breaching method, but everything the breaching method does, it does it through names A through Z. Because names A through Z at locations, areas, and states everywhere the human species body is. They are the only ones that could operate the names of countries A through Z. This breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded them to defend themselves syntactically and then to defend that, therefore physically too. And with relativity to what a breaching method cost. Specifically to get names A through Z, you have to react, and then they have to react wrongly, leaving out itself and defending that. So defending screens of itself with the enemies that they made through it that they didn't want to make. But it made the exceptions for them too, so they would even believe it to themselves. That's what's really going on here. The differences between communism, capitalism, exceptions like socialism. They wouldn't be able to defend their logic, their nature of logic, their syntax, their variable treatments, their uses of knowledge, the nature of debate. There was all kinds of organized crimes associated with Connecticut's campuses of all ages and natures. Quinnipiac was used. They used the campuses to fake things recorded at campuses, filmed 24/7. They also institute, coupled with that, at between totally different campuses, the same one, they have people have actual things recorded that are acting. That is collusion, right where the investigators are needing to hide how they are being, and their campuses are being and have been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactical delusions, wrought since before they were born. So increasingly, former mayors from Wethersfield, plural, and other mayors from Connecticut, and different conjunctions to them and to their family members. They have collusions at and next to the network locations. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. Wethersfield police have been, and other police forms, not identifying themselves legitimately too. In courts, they have people named Scalora, increasingly involved with sexual and medical offenders and untimely deaths, and identity thefts and frauds and slanders. A whole bunch of people from other areas planting evidence on my street. And as people with the name Scalora, I never saw on a campus in my life in Wethersfield. You know, we tried to make a quick exception. I saw from a distance a subby Scalora. He tried to fake ties to me. Increasingly, the Scalora family and people tied to them have collusion /S with predicate acts on my street, with police forms switching names, forging names with courts in other countries, and the Saudi attackers in Washington, D.C., and at Wethersfield Police Department. Some Mendez police brothers have roles there. Next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut, at the Wethersfield Police Station in New Britain Superior Court, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, fake transcripts, fake conversations with me, ever the older Mendez police brother. His younger brother's involved with a principal upskirt nature with New Britain Superior Court, a bunch of people. Hartford, Connecticut's District Court, and Hartford Courts, plural. Bunch of people tied to Sullivan and that woman. Even if it wasn't her, I believe that's the same one that was involved with the FBI and his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and a bunch of people tied to child abusers, leaders of kids, involved with them and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin's co-defendants and their family members, all sides of criminal and civil cases and of depositions through time, are people that fake the same sequence shifts, the same collusion /S with the crime scenes and with their lawyers and with their ad placements. Please get me off the fake conversations with WFSB about the World Trade Center attack too, which instantly recorded. That was after the World Trade Center attack. That instantly recorded their collusion /S with the people involved with the other countries like Saudi Arabia with the campuses and with the different departments at Central Connecticut State University, recorded how you was individually grouped together. A bunch of people with Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway and conjunctions to it into that, like the Berlin Turnpike, and Route 3, like conjunctions to it into that, like the state judicial branch offices. There's a Mr. Neville, and our house is along Route 3, like there's people with a name. A Donahue. I never saw him on the inside of a campus in my life. You know, I never had a conversation with her. One time they demonstrated like two guys that said they were, when they were kids, they said they were the same boyfriends at the same time. They pretended not to like it, and they pretended not to know about it, in other words, and be friends. But it has something to do with sometimes their family, some ways, are the ones criminally foreign influence. Some ways it's the people that I've been involved with interbranch and with the state judicial branch office and corrections offices in conjunctions to it and to that, involved with predicate acts with facts method /S with them and with their educators attaching themselves to fake ties, fake natures of ties to people they didn't have classes with, trying to make fake exceptions, where they go before courts, where they have their family members are already collusion /S with them, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forest, and the family's roles with that because they have other natures of organized crimes. They have their own kids interbranch. They need to hide their actual motivations, which is relative to their roles with the uses of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, conjunctions to them, to that, the sources, same thing, the crime scenes, names next to the body dumping spots, and the interbranch names and intelligence tied to them, foreign to domestic. They never had possession of their identities at countries A through Z. This is ties, counters, and exceptions. They have been systems tactical ulterior from the human species body of individual bodies, and how nature communicates for us to use and to appreciate differences. And it shows us we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time, projected by itself. It shows us the same self that is projecting its generation of totally different species bodies of a whole bunch of individual bodies. We are shown a hyper difference generating all group differences. And or we are shown, as we have black people's rights of eyes to discern, if and when a finite detail, group details, or active relativity, or simultaneous values, let alone together. Nature uses them to show us if and when we are using systems tactile ulterior from its own, which is about positive and negative. We have cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall /S, demonstrated to us, projected by nature itself. And they are appreciating gases in their elements, positive or negative. And they are appreciating water in its elements in nature, positive or negative. See, but we have been separated. We can't have two systems. So they pretend they don't understand people after they make right up front, even too. In other words, get me off fake conversations with WFSB. They pretend that they're not supposed to make allegations or appreciate allegations. They make allegations every day. They want an Epstein list. They want to pretend that they could have that files at courts. It's recorded through administrations. They put fake transcripts in courts. The same ones with the intelligence campuses. They're putting fake transcripts at campuses, time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. That's recorded too. They put me in fake conversation with the World Trade Center attack. I was in the court next to the World Trade Center attack as an observer too. That court itself, it was proven after the World Trade Center attack, right before the World Trade Center attack. From inside the court, there had been post-dating of timely stamp delivered to the court, legal papers. Then they had changed the time stamping on it to make it appear as if it had been handed in late from inside that court. That court has its identity stolen and names on all sides of that case. Their sources, their family members, other natures of conjunction to them, all forced to collusion /S with people I recorded before and after the World Trade Center attack, interstates, intrastates, and intercampuses and intracampuses, and internationally. Also hyper-internationally, all kinds of differences rackets, uses of their own differences and of others, to cover up how they had collusion, self-value with the breaching method, self-valued and/or sensing for the breaching method, body not self-valued roles. For example, self-valued with all locations where they have experts on American history. They are use /S of their knowledge of good and evil, of good, not, I don't want to use that phrase, of their knowledge of history, of truths and facts, to get over on the principle. James Madison left declassified for himself and for the rest of the founders and for everyone else, including the presidents /chiefs, how no one had free speech. Then once James Madison was also a president /chief, he still didn't have free speech. They had to have this declassified for themselves. There's various ways. Demonstrable. They're getting away with this by putting fake transcripts and not allowing anyone to deal with things on paper. They have, again, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, killers, names next to body, dumping spots, who have time pollution since they were kids with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. I minded my business through life. They're putting people that we never even see in classes on the same, but we're on the same campus. Fake ties, fake nature ties to their families, people tied to them. Joe Lamar, I used to never try to contact him. Hey, he knows I recorded me. He tried to pretend others recorded it with the FBI. They try to cover it up. How I recorded them with investigations, investigators remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw, all kinds of abuses of children. And people involved also who have the elderly homes and elderly programs and their jobs with it and the value of that. These are people jumping into people's conversations dishonestly. And then they want forgiveness out of sequence. In other words, that's why you guys are supposed to follow mandated law. We won't give them excuses. They put fake transcripts and they fake what they think about people On a mass scale, they already recorded themselves using crime methods where they pretend that people had conversations with themselves where they said everyone's evil. There are a whole bunch of people tied to the government. And just look how many agencies there are. There's that difference. When have they been able to speak for the law properly? They haven't even brought in black pupils, whites of eyes, and how a breaching method reassigned with nature communicates with that when nature is not only itself as criminal insidious as nature. As nature itself shows us this. I'm not even a lawyer. What are witch trials about? Even if they were completely made up, there's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Other is being and has been communicated for those places than our founders have communicated for them. And the breaching method effect and maintains that outcome /S, gives them means to pretend other, restricting research and having, the known overtly criminally foreign tactical delusions raw. Bullying logic with American history. And then, the exceptions as collusions too, with the difference between the exceptions. This is a well-researched, you guys didn't know about that fact. This is the fact that matters. It's the difference between president / chief too. They're not supposed to be compatible. This is about forever nature, where more hyper-additional nature is being made and valued here as its body, as it's a special difference, that generating all completely different species bodies, or forced from here as forced space nature transfer. So you guys force the nature of the bay. So you won't. How could you tell what my feelings are? You guys want to figure out feelings dishonestly. The differences of the guilt of the intelligence at the networks or the intelligence next to them. They're also confessing this, also with silence. You guys need to get me off fake conversations with the Wethersfield Police and New Britain Superior Court and WFSB. And these are the sources of WTNH who have been planting fake ties to me at the same exact time with the same stories. Not one person will get onto paper. And they forced child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. And the same roles with elderly homes. And with quality aspects of nature next to it. And names conjunctive to it. 3 spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike. Increasingly involved with people with identity theft, fraud, slanders with Wethersfield Police. And with other police departments. And the courts. And the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices. Used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought through administrations, pretending others, self-fired roles, or being sensed. Facebook also has collusions with Wethersfield state offices and their family members and ties to them. And it's all along Route 3 and Route 175 from founding locations in Old Wethersfield and conjunctions into that. Increasingly rolls with all kinds of wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods, natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, home break-ins, business break-ins. Increasingly, the corrections office and judicial branch offices has roles with all that and body dumping spots, untimely deaths, cover-ups that have people pretending passions, emotions, as collusions with Facebook and other media taking people's stuff away so they can break and fake the conversation and then change it and cover up their collusions that were already used to use them. They already have to show. The breaching method shows them. They lock them in with uses of files and everything that came before courts. They already had collusion /S with all natures of crime scenes and with all ages and natures of campuses. And the differences of the guilt there are the names next to it. And same thing with the parks and recreation. The difference of the guilt there or names next to it. So there's a Donahue or something involved with a Hanson family, a DeMoro family, and a Kerr family with the side entrances to Millwoods Park. And one of them is on Route 3. And that house and another house, I think it was one associated with, used to be True Value Hardware. increasingly involved with people with identity theft, fraud, slander, spraying behind my back, putting fake ties, fake nature ties to me. And they tricked me to do a lawn there one time, to put fake ties, fake nature ties to me, as people with their educators and former mayors and all sides of a religious spot, also involved with people from other religions, also as one of my educators, increasingly involved with sexual syntax regarding a little girl that lived near me at the time and her family, increasingly getting pulled in by them searching to that's between them and that. You know, when you hear people saying, when they say call the police, they have wire crime maxing methods. They have rules, recorded themselves, threatening people not to speak with the police because they already faced conversations with people. And the people that did speak with them, they already had them putting collusions, fake, and changed what they actually said. These are, in other words, on a mass scale, there are fake transcripts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. That's one of the things that nature has been demonstrating to us with Black people's whites of eyes. They need to hide that. So it's just one of the things that is manifest relativity to each of us that we can discern. See, but the voices of the law were taught to use logic and reason and nature of logic and reason regarding differences like Republican and Democrat, and like regarding subject treatments, incapable of affording our means just for free, just with social media, what everyone's trying to do. If you follow the rules and stop making allegations or calling people, pretending they're making allegations just to force between interbranch or private, so they could just cover up the roles and demonstrations of the breaching method involved too, not just a whole bunch of countries. The current Clinton Correctional Facility has a Frank D. Reese involved with a bunch of people tied to intercities to the intelligence community. There's a Wayne, I don't know his last name, or he involved with a Dean Judd too. A Dean Judd, his kid. I never met Dean Judd. I never had a word of conversation with his kid. They're involved with foreign and domestic military, with West Hartford, New Britain locations, and a whole bunch of names from Wethersfield involved with those locations, who also have collusion/S with predicate acts on my street, and the police departments with the same house/S, including ones that no longer live in the area for years. And the only context I know them and they were planting evidence is putting fake ties, fake nature ties to me. Increasingly people, those are the people involved with mayors and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and home break-ins and collusion/S, years apart too. Time ones, years apart, untimely deaths, the same house/S and narratives, totally different families there got involved. Because there's use of location/S by the breaching method manifest that nature has been demonstrating. And this breaching method shows the suits and ties, counters, exceptions at locations, areas, and states. They need to keep demonstrations of itself and everything it did through others. They need to keep, it shows them for their own reasons, they need to keep things offensively, blame the other things, others ourselves. Self-valuing means needs provided for them to get away with that. Where how the breaching method employed and maintains, other communicate. Then our founders and then nature itself communicates with Black people's whites of eyes. We're supposed to address how the colonel who directed us, or directed American people in American history not to shoot until they see the whites of eyes. We were directed to understand how no one had free speech at that time. How even slavery against our Black people's whites of eyes and rolls with that. Syntax systems, tactile terror from nature were only allowed and had been sustained. And then America's founders were born, had been sustained northern colonies and southern colonies, sickly distinctly, sickly non-distinctly. Slavery was entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. right through the Civil War, saying they can't address that originally and stuff because we're not addressing how every difference was multi-front, hurt and helped for the method of keeping everyone blaming other things, others, ourselves, and incapable. Everyone pretending to have free speech, even believe. In other words, even when the natures of free speech only capable of blaming other things, others, ourselves, being natures of unity or natures of independence, through an as system was tactile deleterious from the human species body of unity that is independent from the other species bodies of individual bodies, but no longer. The only reason it took so long is because humanity is only one species body of individual bodies. We have been systems tactile deleterious from the one that is itself also positive onto and as itself. Because itself, when it's only as criminal and citizen's nature as itself, even if countries A through Z agree, it will show us that is a criminal and citizen's nature of positive treatment, of unity, syntactically obligated to what can't afford to be, let alone to protract. Definitions and syntax by unity proper by its system. Therefore, all other systems / even if you have art, it is distinctly the identity of the finite, or the order of the finite. It is distinctly the order of what is active in a group as an order. It is distinctly the order of what is simultaneous as an order, because the rest of its complete identity of relationship to itself is too great and is too finite and is with, active relativity to matter juxtaposed with its body to an extent, and with its complete identity relationship to itself, and only capable of increasing value of that here, or as it forced from here, which comes, the science of this is about its identity of relationship to itself, that which is generating totally different species bodies of individual bodies, that which is generating communications to us about difference. That's that which has with the same colorized, different colorized at the same time, and exceptions. That which is, in other words, please fix the fake news.